Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. I want to talk about a couple of important things this morning. The first is a phenomenon you may not have heard of before, which is kindling withdrawal. And the second is just to quickly talk about the progression of my alcoholism and my addiction. Just a few signs that perhaps you should be looking out for. Just before I do that, the channel always needs a bit little help and support. If you feel like you'd like to do that, please click the Ko-fi link in the description and have a read. Find out how you can help. Thank you so much. Kindling withdrawal is a phenomenon which I'd never heard of before. And I only heard about it after I suffered from it, which is a bit ironic, really. There's a link at the end of this video to my last video, which talks about hopefully the last relapse I'll ever have, which was put me in hospital and nearly killed me. I found out in hospital that I had had what was known as a kindling withdrawal. What that is, in essence, it was a withdrawal from alcoholism, but it will affect any withdrawal you have, whether it's from drugs or alcohol. If you continuously have withdrawals, continually trying to get sober, the kindling phenomenon is that each withdrawal will get more severe as you go on, basically, until it reaches a point, which is the point I reached in my last withdrawal, where it will trigger worse and worse effects and symptoms, seizures, which get worse and worse and worse, and ultimately can lead to fatality. It's something you should be aware of, because alcoholism and addiction, but particularly alcoholism, there's no doubt about it, a progressive illness. It may be that you at the moment are having social drinks, or you're binging, or you don't think you have any issues at all around your alcohol consumption. But there's just a few signs I want to talk about quickly that perhaps you should be aware of and looking for. For me, my alcoholism in particular, but this goes for my opiate addiction as well, really. It applies to both, but in this instance, let's talk about alcoholism. Initially, it followed sort of three stages, if you like. And in the early days, when I was managing nightclubs in my 20s, it was more about binging. The fact is, though, if I'm honest with myself and I look back, there was never any off switch. If someone had said, have one drink, or I'd just look at them as if they were crazy. I could never just have one drink. There was never an off switch with me. I never saw it as any issue in my 20s because it was part of the nightclub culture. It was a hedonistic lifestyle. There's no doubt about that. It was wild, and I partied, and there's no, my consumption was heavy. It was more about binging, but if I look back, there was blackouts going on. Robin Williams always says blackouts are like sleepwalking with activities, which I always laugh at because that was it. I could never remember what I'd done, but I never saw it as an issue. It was just part of my lifestyle. But if I look back at as well, that it progressed on. Then I went into my sort of 30s, and I was managing pubs, restaurants and hotels. I'd got married, we had children. I had a much calmer lifestyle. But then I began, if I'm honest, to use alcohol for a different reasons. There was still not an off switch. I still just couldn't have one. That was always there. But I also started to self-medicate on it. I noticed I was becoming restless, irritable and discontented, which, I was never satisfied. Whatever we had, because we were really successful at that stage, and I was never happy with that. I never felt happy with myself. I was never confident in myself. Didn't really like myself, to be honest. And then I was using alcohol and drugs in that instance to hide from feelings I didn't want to feel. I was using it to relax. I was using it to stave off anger and hide from pain. Ultimately, there was always some sort of pain at the back of it that I was medicating myself to avoid. Not massively to excess, really, at that stage, you know, but it began to become a daily occurrence. And as that progressed, and I don't really like this term, but I became, because the business kept running more thanks to my wife than to me, I became a functioning or high-functioning alcoholic, as they call it. And again, I'll quote Robin Williams here. Sorry if this offends anyone, but he said, a functioning alcoholic is like a paraplegic lap dancer. You can do it, but just not very well. And that was the story of my life, really. I sort of fumbled through it. And then my alcoholism and my addiction progressed to the end game, if you like, which was the last 15 years. It went from rehab onwards. You'll find all this in my stories on this channel if you want to look back and hear in more detail exactly what happened to me. But I then became a chronic alcoholic because it had progressed to that stage. Yes, you know, it was one drink would trigger. I just couldn't stop. That was it. It was constant until I was at the point where I was almost in constant withdrawal. You know, it had become a horror show. It had become horrific. You know, I wouldn't wish what I was going through or people that are in that stage on my worst enemy, because, you know, I was isolated, locked away, thinking about committing suicide every single day. No doubt about that. Thank God, you know, I found some relief at the end of it all. But that was my life. I was just drinking to stave off withdrawal. So I would sort of go into this coma state, wake up, shaking, sweats, heart banging out my chest, all the horrific effects, hallucinating, and have to take try and hold a drink to start with, but take a drink to stave off withdrawal. That was just a constant daily routine. And then the stress and worry of trying to find money to buy it, try and get out and get the energy to get out to the shop to buy it, and drink a litre of wine to get up the hill back to my home, because that would be the only way, vomiting on the way. You know, I'm sorry to be so graphic, but that chronic stage is the end stage. And I've been through withdrawals before, if you listen to my story, you'll hear, and had sobriety before. But when I look back, the withdrawals had got worse and worse. So eventually, you know, if you look back at the last video linked to this, as I say, the Kindling Withdrawal hit. And there, I discovered two things in hospital. And one was that I desperately wanted to live because I was so frightened, because I so nearly died. And secondly, that I couldn't do this on my own, and I desperately and had to seek help and accept help from wherever I could get it from. Because if you get to that stage of chronic alcoholism and addiction, you cannot, and I repeat, I don't care who you are, cannot do it on your own. And I've discovered that the hard way. So please, my friends, if you're at that stage, seek help and be aware. Wherever you get the help is entirely up to you. If that's been any help to you, please subscribe. Please click the Ko-fi link and give the channel a little support. Thank you for listening. Carpe diem. Seize the day today. Stay strong, my friends. Much love to you all. Bye-bye.